Hello and welcome. Today we are going to have test prep for our angles unit. So let's get right into the review. Here is an example of a question you would likely see on your test. You are asked to estimate, measure, and name this angle. Look closely and remember, the orientation of the angle does not matter. It could be sideways, upside down, whichever way, but you are looking for the angle. In this one, this angle is a straight angle. It measured exactly 180 degrees, which was my estimate because I could tell it looked like a straight line. If you see a straight line, there's a very good chance you have a straight angle. I also used my protractor to measure to make sure that I had exactly 180 degrees. Here's another example. In this one, you also have to estimate, measure, and name the angle. I can see by looking at this angle that this is an obtuse angle. I know it's an angle that is greater than 90 degrees, but less than 180. When making my estimate, I'm looking to see roughly where it is between 90 degrees and 180 degrees. It looks closer to 90 degrees, but not that close. So I'm going to estimate this to be about 120 degrees. And I won't know for sure until I measure it with my protractor. So let's get into that. My estimate was pretty bang on. As well, when I measure with my protractor, I got exactly 120 degrees. And of course, this is an obtuse angle. Once again, that is an angle greater than 90 degrees, but less than 180 degrees. Here's another example. Remember, don't get fooled by the orientation of the angle. It could be sideways or upside down even. This is a right angle. I noticed it looked very much like it was coming to the corner of an upside down L shape. That's why I guessed for my estimate that this was 90 degrees. And I confirmed with my protractor that it was exactly 90 degrees. In this example, once again, you need to estimate the size of the angle, measure, and then name the angle. When I did that, I could tell that this was an acute angle because it was less than 90 degrees. I used that information to think about what estimate I would have. And I noticed it looked like it was greater than halfway, which would be 45 degrees. So I made my estimate 70 degrees. And when I measured it with my protractor, I realized I'm getting pretty good at estimating because it was exactly 70 degrees. Another type of question you will likely see on your test is you may be asked to draw an angle between 45 degrees and 90 degrees. As well, be sure if you get one of these that you measure and label the angles. So here, I know an acute angle is 45 degrees, and I know a right angle is exactly 90 degrees. I need to draw an angle in between those two. So here's what I do. I think about how I would draw it. I know 45 degrees is about halfway between 0 and 90, and I want to go a little bit over that. So I draw an angle, I measure it, and this one is exactly 60 degrees. I did show you here how I labeled it, And then I also showed you beside that how I measured it with the protractor. It's very important to label that it is a 60-degree angle. And once again, I'd also want to say here that this is an acute angle. An acute angle is an angle less than 90 degrees. On to the next one. You will be asked to draw an angle that is 140 degrees. It's very important that you use a protractor and a ruler, or at the very least, use the straight edge of your protractor to draw your horizontal line to begin. So I start with drawing a horizontal line here. I line up my protractor with the vertex and the baseline of the bottom arm of the angle with my protractor so that it's at 0. I make a little guide mark for myself where it is saying 140 degrees, and very carefully use your straight edge or ruler to connect your guide mark to the vertex. It's really important too to use your protractor again after you draw the angle to make sure that you did draw it accurately and it does actually represent what you were trying to do. In this case, that would be 140 degrees. Here's another example for test prep. Draw an angle that is 240 degrees. I put a couple of these into our review because an angle that is greater than 240 degrees is a reflex angle. And there's an extra step to draw a reflex angle. To begin, I know that a full rotation, a complete circle, is 360 degrees. I know my reflex angle is 240 degrees. To help me draw it, though, I want to find out how many degrees the interior angle is. To find that, I start with a full rotation, 360 degrees. I subtract the amount of degrees from my reflex angle, which was 240 degrees, and the difference I am left with is 120 degrees. And that is the measurement for the interior angle. By drawing an interior angle, it's a little bit easier. You start once again with a horizontal line. Use the straight edge of your protractor or a ruler. Line up your protractor with that horizontal line and the vertex that you have created. Use your guide mark to find 120 degrees. Connect those points, and you will have drawn a 120 degree angle. But you also will have drawn your reflex angle that you needed to, which is 240 degrees. That is the angle that is the opposite of the interior. To make this a little more clear, I gave you another example of a reflex angle. Here, you are asked to draw an angle that is 340 degrees. A reflex angle I know is greater than 180 degrees, but less than 360 degrees. Here, I'm asked to draw an angle that is 340 degrees. To draw that, and to help myself out here, I need to remember that a full rotation is 360 degrees. And I can subtract the amount of my reflex angle, 340 degrees, to find out what the interior angle is. When I subtract and find the difference, I know that my interior angle is 20 degrees. I would start by drawing a horizontal line. Be careful to make sure you're using either a ruler or the straight edge of your protractor. Then I would line up my protractor with the vertex on the horizontal line I have just drawn and draw an angle that is 20 degrees. That's my interior angle. Since I've drawn that and know that it's my interior angle, the remaining exterior angle is my reflex angle, which is 340 degrees. Moving on, the next question states, draw an angle that is 40 degrees. Anytime you do this, remember to always use a ruler and a protractor. At the very least, if you only have a protractor, make sure to be using the straight edge of the protractor to draw your horizontal line and to connect your guide marks to the vertex. In this example, I drew my horizontal line, I lined my protractor up with the vertex, made the guide mark to where it was 40 degrees, and then connected the guide mark with the vertex to complete my 40-degree angle. It is important to label the angle measurement. Alrighty, moving on. In the next one, you are asked to draw an angle that is 70 degrees. And make sure you're using a protractor. Here, I've shown you how I would draw a 70-degree angle. I make sure that I use a straight edge or ruler to draw my horizontal line. I line up my protractor with the vertex on that horizontal line, make a guide mark to where 70 degrees is, and then attach with my straight edge the guide mark to the vertex to complete the 70-degree angle. Once again, I want to note, it's important that you do check with your protractor after you have drawn to make sure that your angle is accurately drawn. Our next question states, now draw an angle that is 90 degrees more than the previous angle. Well, our previous angle was 70 degrees. To draw an angle that is 90 degrees more than that, I would have to know that 90 degrees plus 70 degrees equals 160 degrees. Then I would be able to easily draw it. Once again, to draw an angle, start with the straight edge and draw your horizontal line. Line your protractor up with the vertex. Make a guide mark for yourself where it states it is 160 degrees. Then use the straight edge of your protractor again to connect the guide mark to the vertex. Take your time with this. You want to make sure that you are accurate. And of course, label your angle with the degrees it is. And it's also helpful to write the name of the angle. In this case, a 160-degree angle is an obtuse angle. You are likely to see a question where you will be asked to draw a quadrilateral that has exactly two 90-degree angles. Knowing that it's going to have two 90-degree angles exactly, your other two angles in the quadrilateral will not be 90 degrees. If you want to try it on your own, you may pause the video now. If you're really needing support, follow along. To draw a quadrilateral with exactly two 90-degree angles, of course, you first need to make sure you have a straight edge and a protractor with you. I started drawing my quadrilateral by first making two 90-degree angles. Those are the ones that I knew I would have. Then you will want to move on to experimenting with what other angles you will be adding to this quadrilateral. I have given you one example here. I have two 90-degree angles, but I now also have one 100-degree angle and one 80-degree angle. This all will add up to 360 degrees. A key point I need to remember here is that all of my interior angles in a quadrilateral must add up to 360 degrees exactly. This next example is a little bit different. You may be asked to draw a quadrilateral with exactly 3 acute angles. Remember, you can only have 3 acute angles, and acute angles are angles that are less than 90 degrees. I encourage you to try it out on your own. You can pause the video now, and when you're ready, you can restart and hear the full explanation of how I did this. If you're really unsure of how to proceed from here, you can stay with me right now. Okay, I'm going to show you what I did here with my shape. I made a quadrilateral. I wanted it to have 3 acute angles, and my 3 acute angles all, of course, have to be less than 90 degrees. The ones I used in this example are 45-degree angle, a 30-degree angle, and a 60-degree angle. Remember, the 4th angle in my quadrilateral is not going to be an acute angle. Nor really could it be. Remember also that all interior angles in a quadrilateral must equal 360 degrees. In mine, I ended up also having a reflex angle in my quadrilateral. And my reflex angle, of course, is greater than 180 degrees and less than 360 degrees. In this case, the one that I drew was 225 degrees. Here's a hint. Remember to find your reflex angle. First, find the interior angle of your reflex angle to determine how many degrees it is. In this next example, the question reads, a triangle has angle measures of 35 degrees and 55 degrees. What is the measure of the 3rd angle? Just a little note to get you to remember, the 3 interior angles of a triangle must add up to 180 degrees exactly. Since you have 2 measurements for 2 of the interior angles, 35 degrees and 55 degrees, you can use those to solve for the 3rd one. Try it out on your own. Okay, here is the explanation of how I would do this. First, I once again remind myself that all 3 interior angles must equal 180 degrees in the triangle. Knowing that, I add the 2 known angles, 35 degrees and 55 degrees, and that equals a total of 90. Then what I must do is I need to subtract those 90 degrees that those 2 angles make up from 180 degrees, because I know in triangles, all 3 interior angles must add up to exactly 180 degrees. When I find the difference, I discover 180 subtract 90 is 90. So the measure of the 3rd angle is 90 degrees. In this next example, a quadrilateral has 3 angles that measure 70 degrees, 125 degrees, and 35 degrees. You are asked to find the measure of the 4th angle. Once again, I encourage you to pause the video and try this out on your own. Then when you're ready, you can unpause the video and check to see if your answer is correct. If you had an answer of 130 degrees for that fourth angle, you are correct. To solve this, we have to remember that in a quadrilateral, all interior angles must add up to a total of 360 degrees. To do this, what I must do is add the three known interior angles together. And then I need to find the difference. Whatever those three interior angles equal, I need to subtract that from 360 degrees. When I subtracted 230 degrees from the 360 degrees, I was left with an answer of 130 degrees. 130 degrees is the measurement for the fourth interior angle in this quadrilateral. Thank you for watching. Until next time.